episode, whatever you want to call it. And this week we're talking puzzle games, or more specifically, the games that just make you feel smart, that make you scratch your head. The game presents you a puzzle, and you've, as players, have either got to work together to solve it, or it's a race to sort of figure out that puzzle. We've got a few games listed here, but I think the place we have to start is, like Monopoly is the entry point for everyone for board gaming in general. I think everyone's had experience with Guess Who and Cluedo are the two sort of games that will be immediately familiar in this sort of genre.
I'd want to know, just as a straw poll, who was Cluedo first and who was Guess Who first?
I was definitely Guess Who first.
I was
Cluedo.
Yeah, Cluedo.
Yeah.
Guess Who was looked at as an expensive game in my family. There were too many bits and moving parts. No, I'm not getting that. The kids will break that. Just get a board game.
I suppose Guess Who isn't really a logic puzzle as well, but it's the first thing that when you think of a deduction, it's like you're asking a question and you're trying to find the best amount of questions to get there. But I think Cluedo is the better example of what we're kind of talking about tonight, which is the idea that we had that you touched on, Blake, which is we wanted to talk about if you like doing like a Sudoku or a crossword, the board games that give you that puzzle that you need to complete from a logic standpoint. So we're not going to be talking about social deduction games like Werewolf. We may touch on Blood on the Clock Tower a little bit, but probably not. We'll probably devote a whole episode to that at some point. But those kind of games that have a social deduction aspect, the resistance, that kind of stuff, we're not talking about. We're talking about games like Search for Planet X, The Alchemists. We're going to I know I'm mentioning the games now, but these are the games that we're sort of talking about. That, like, if you love doing a Sudoku, there is a path to the finish, but board games provide a very unique, landscape in which now you're doing it competitively. It's who can finish the Sudoku first, and Cluedo is the first example of that, which is we all have specific bits of information, and now we need to ask the right questions to get to that information. Now, I do have to say, my family, the rule has always been with me and my three brothers, this is an information gathering game. So, however you get that information is legitimate. If that means that I accidentally lean over and I see my brother's holding the dagger, so Cluedo for us has turned into just a complete information gathering game. It's like, hey, if I can somehow get more information than you, that was your fault. But at its core, though, I know that's like Cluedo is a game about actually asking the right questions and getting the information.
No one plays Monopoly with the real rules, so why would they play Cluedo with the real rules?
Exactly. Exactly right. But like I love Cluedo. My brother Chris is fantastic at it. He's kind of thinks of it as a solved game for him because he wins it a lot because he understands how to get those right questions. Yeah. But I mean, Ralph, you said that Cluedo was your first game into it. I mean, how do you find it thinking back on the games of Cluedo now? In your hobby?
I never played that variant of it. But, I suppose looking back, there was a murder. Why are you withholding information?
That's exactly right.
Give me your damn... Have you got the dagger?
That's right.
Did you do it?
Who did it? You know who did it.
No, he didn't kill it.
Does that work?
Mr. Thompson. But yeah, I really enjoy Cluedo. I think even to this day, if someone was to bring it out and they were keen for it, I'll happily play it. It's not something where it's like Monopoly where you're like, no, I'm not playing that. But Cluedo, I'll very happily do it. I said it with Cluedo, my first game. Guess Who was very close. It was still in that era, but I play Cluedo so much more because there's an actual board game there. I found Cluedo is you're secretly judging people, but we were raised not to judge people. So it was very confusing.
I think the Guess Who stuff was also because it's only a 2-player game.
Yeah.
And so with a family of 4 kids and with 4 cousins who always came around, Cluedo was probably a better choice.
I will say that Cluedo does suffer from the Monopoly problem of that there is one rule that people always tend to forget, which is you're only allowed to ask about the room that you're currently standing in. So a lot of people are like, the conservatory. But it's like, but you're in the kitchen. I don't care. I want to know did he die in the conservatory? How do you know? I'm shouting across the hallway. So people tend to do that. But other than that.
But the creators of Uno say you can't stack +2s on +2s, and everyone
does that.
Everyone does that.
Teaching Robbie that was a bad mistake.
We do. We add an extra layer on top of that, which is that you can throw a reverse card down on a +2, which sends the +2 back to the player.
That is
who sent it to you.
The same colour.
Yeah, of course.
There are still rules.
Yeah. Of course. I mean,
we're not animals.
We're not a barbarian. But yeah, so Cluedo was a first game, and I kind of touched on some other games, and we wanted to kind of give you the listeners out there, a couple of other games, which is that.
I will say, I have to go against the grain. I'm not a fan of Cluedo.
That's fine.
I'll agree with that. Was when I was younger, and I just.
Is there any particular reason you're against it?
I mean, I never really got it to a proper table and a proper with a group of people who were really into it. But I don't know, it just never really clicked with me, which is strange because I like the theme. I love deduction games probably more than most, but something about Cluedo, it's a bit samey. I didn't quite like the rolling for movement, which sort of hinders your. It's not sort of there's that random element implemented into how you're trying to solve the game.
Yeah.
I think one of the games that we're going to touch on, which I'm going to let you go. So we are going to move on to a couple of the other games, I think, that we want to have a chat about. So if you like Sudoku and you like the idea of a puzzle and you love the idea of Cluedo, but like Blake said, we want to give you a couple of things. Now, I'm just going to start with one straight off the bat, which is going to be the Unlock series. Yep. Now, this was my first pick in the draft last week, and for a good reason, which is, first of all, it's a cooperative experience. It's you versus the game, and it plays in about an hour, similar to what you would expect in an escape room. So it is essentially, the Unlock series is an escape room in a box, but the escape room plays only with cards and the use of an app.
Yep.
Now, the app itself can provide you with puzzles and things, but this is that game that I think is the perfect jump for a lot of people to find out, hey, this board gaming hobby is much more than just we're going to beat each other's throats or we're going to try to beat you. So no, we're going to work together as a team to beat this now. It does suffer from the problem that, like an escape room, like once you solve it, it's solved. Yeah. You can't come back to it. But thankfully, the games are really cheap. You can buy a single box for $15. Yeah. And $15 for an hour's worth of entertainment is cheaper than going to a movie. And if you share it with a bunch of 4 players, which is recommended, you really get your money's worth out of them.
Yeah, I haven't played Unlock, but I have played a few of the Exit series, and they work pretty much the same way. I think they're just less card based. They're more like you get some books instead. But yeah, I beat one of them just at a cafe. I stopped for a coffee with a cousin of mine. We caught up for a while, and we're like, we've got a couple of hours. Let's just play this. I have it in my car.
Yeah.
As you do. And we just had a blast with it.
Yeah, so they're a lot of fun. I played a couple at the first NebaCon that I attended with a couple of friends there. And we played the Star Wars variant, I think, which I didn't realise was part of this series, but it all makes sense now. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was, it wasn't too easy that you were sort of breezing through it, but there was enough to crunch on.
Yeah, there's a couple of bits where you go, oh, I'm getting this. This is going to be easy. And then there's a roadblock or two. You're like, what the hell? What did I miss? What didn't I read properly? Or what have I not noticed about the cards or something? There was one that we had to play where you had to fold the cards.
Yeah.
And make it like a croquet set or something. Like you had to then, I had no idea that was even a mechanic, right? And I certainly wasn't going to be folding someone's cards, right? Like you don't do that to someone's board game. And then once you'd figure that out, I was like, okay, that makes perfect sense.
You can destroy everything in those games.
One of the most interesting mechanics I did see in an Unlock board game, this is kind of a bit of a spoiler, but I won't say for which one, but there was one where basically the last puzzle was you actually had to go and look at the barcode of the box that you bought.
Wow.
And when that clicked, I went, oh my God, I'm a genius. Like, I'm sure that's it. And sure enough, did it, bing, you win, right? I'm like, oh my God. And from that point onwards, I was always like, is there a barcode? Something to do with the barcode? It's like, no, it never happened again. They don't tend to read. But from an Unlock, the Unlock series and the Exit series and any of these escape room things, there are some duds. I found there are some ones I've liked a lot more than others, so you do have to be careful. But the good thing is you can buy the Unlocks in series of 3. So it's like you can buy a box for like $45, I think it is, and it gives you 3 of 3 decks in one. So then you can just do one, come back to it, do it again. The Unlock series is one of my wife's favorite board games. She loves doing it. We've actually owned basically every single one of them, so it's nearly 15 plus different escape rooms, and we've gone through all of them bar 2. I think we still got a couple to do. But yeah, she loves them. And look, she goes, you don't like them. I go, no, I do like them, but I also sometimes feel like I have to be in the proper mindset to get it, to be into it, because if I'm not feeling it, I'm just going to sit here for an hour going, rah. I'm like, oh, this is a stupid damn puzzle, rah. But then it's like, sometimes I'm like, it makes me feel like the smartest man in the room. And I love watching people do it. It's the hardest thing not to go, look at that. So no, you got to let them figure it out. That's fun.
I think one of my favorite parts from the game that we played, when we played with my friend, Nee's brother, Nick, And I didn't realize this was sort of mechanic in the game. I thought once you've got the things, you'd just be able to, almost like you're trying to brute force it. I'm just going to try this here. We've all been in that sort of game where you're like, I'm just going to try the candlestick on the door, see if that works. But I think Nick attempted to try a gun on something that wasn't working because we were just a bit stuck, and it's like, great, your gun's now broken. Get rid of the card. No. All right. Well, thanks, Nick.
And then and also suffer a 2-minute time penalty. What have I done?
That's right. I forgot they're like an app, and it's time based. So the exit, I think they got an app, but it's not time sensitive.
Yeah.
So I know I seem to be sticking to a theme, but I've got a kids version of it. It's not the Unlock series; it's its own little standalone game. But I think it's got 6 different mini games in it. But you instead of just playing it at the table, you actually hang little locks on different doors around the house that are color coded, and then inside those rooms there are the cards to get to the next room.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? And the kids love it because they're the puzzles are pretty easy. They're not overly complex. Usually either color based games or maths based games. Some of them are write the answers down, but very few of them. Most of them are just count this, and the result of that gives you the answer to unlock the next door kind of thing. Yeah. And they usually play in about 40 minutes. And then the very last door is actually, like the game comes with a large plastic padlock that locks over your front door, and the last key unlocks the front door to get out of the house.
That's awesome.
What's that game called? That sounds really cool.
It's just an escape room, but it's a kid's version. I'll
you have to feature that on the podcast. I think that sounds awesome.
You can check it out on our Discord as well. So we'll check that out. That's cool.
Just want to say, Blake, you said that these are games that make us feel like the smartest person in the room. These games make me feel like the dumbest person in the room because I've been, especially actual escape rooms as well. I've just been stuck in a room and you know what? I don't know what to do. And then you get the person on the radio going, turn the pink key. And you're like, what pink key? And it's so obvious. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially depending on who you play with. You can feel really dumb sometimes. God damn it.
Yeah.
Just running away with it again.
There's a game on here called Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which I've got, and I've played the first level of it. And this game, I think, has been around since the 70s. And it stood the test of time. I had a reprint not too long ago. But essentially, you get, the London newspaper, and you get to read that. And they're like, oh, there's been a murder. And you get to peruse the classifieds to get clues. You get a little street directory. You can, look up kind of like an atlas or an index, and you can go to that person's house and see where they live. You can talk to them, just trying to figure out the murder. And essentially you spend an hour playing this game, just reading out of several different books. And then you're like, okay, I think it was this person. And it wasn't. And it made you feel so stupid because the answer book is Sherlock Holmes himself, because you play yourself going up against Sherlock Holmes trying to solve the murder. And he's like, I talked to this person, and this person, and he did it. And you're like, okay, well, I went everywhere else in London, spent an hour just reading shit. But it's a fantastic game, and it plays like a little campaign, and then you get the next day you get another newspaper, so you have to read 2 newspapers to solve the next crime, and it's such a great puzzle. It's a really interesting game just to sit there for an hour and have a coffee. You can play it with 2-3 people.
It's very much. It just says get a notepad. Because you're going to be writing stuff from the newspaper. And so it's depending on how many places you went, depends on how long it took you. And Sherlock goes, no, you're an idiot. Not only were you wrong, but I solved it in half the time.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. And I played another game called Detective. And it's essentially, it's got a website. It's more modern. It's got a website, which is a database. And you'll read a card and you're like, oh, this person just recently got out of prison. You can look him up. You can find all his history and everything. And someone's driving the car, going to visit and interview witnesses and shit like that. And then you have to complete a quiz online when you want to submit your case file or your report. And then you get it completely wrong. And everyone's like, well, look, we had a good 2 hours figuring it out because it's definitely a co-op game. And it's so interesting. And the cards is kind of legacy and you tear things up and things like that. But it's super interesting. You're engaged the entire time.
Yeah.
But we've never solved one successfully.
Yeah.